Well, hello and welcome to PlantLife Project. Since starting this channel a few years ago, most of the videos have been centered around building ripariums and teaching you how to grow various house plants out of your fish tanks to help you reduce water changes and create a more natural environment for your fish. And I've got over 100 videos on this very topic. This year I've been branching out, making more videos about building and maintaining container ponds. And I've also begun selling aquatic plants on eBay, ones that I've grown here in this greenhouse or indoors in my tanks. And I'm currently in the process of expanding this greenhouse to increase plant production for next year. So PlantLife Project is not just a YouTube channel where you can learn about growing various aquatic plants, but it's also going to be a place where you can get these plants for your planted aquarium, your container pond, your vivarium, whatever your plant project may be. And we currently do have a community Facebook group where you can join and post pictures of your planted tank and get information from other members. So I'm working toward making PlantLife Project a multifaceted resource where you can get information, also plants and products, and also have some community centered around this hobby. During this season of expansion, I'll be doing more vlogging style videos, documenting the greenhouse project, plant propagations, and whatever else happens along the way. In the spring, I've got plans to build more container ponds. I've still got more aquarium projects that I haven't gotten into yet. So there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming down the pipe in the next several months. So please join me, subscribe if you haven't yet to the channel. Join me on this adventure known as PlantLife Project. Well, now let's get into today's video, which is the first phase of the greenhouse expansion. I built a retaining wall on the south end of the current greenhouse and expanded the gravel base with the idea that I will move this current greenhouse to this southernmost end of the gravel base. But first I need to figure out how to move the stock tank pond. It has a dirt substrate capped with sand, and even after draining the water, it's still going to be 200 to 300 pounds. And all of this pothos is going to need trimming. It's been growing out of this pond for 3 years now, and it's growing along the ground and up into the rafters. Here's a root from the monstera that grew out of the tub and down into the gravel. It's crazy how adaptable and persistent these plants are. I'm always amazed at how big these pothos leaves get when they're growing out of an aquarium or even out of a pond in this setting, and it always hurts to have to trim and throw away the excess. But you know, I can't keep propagating indefinitely because this stuff is so prolific. At some point I have to throw some of it away. And look how long, I mean, these vines get so long. And inside in one of my tanks recently I trimmed off a pothos vine that was 17 feet long. So these things just keep growing and growing. It's crazy. Here's one of my rice fish totes that I need to drain and figure out which plants to keep. This has been an overflow for extra riparian plants that has consolidated into this tote, and now I need to make some decisions. Definitely going to keep the red mangroves and the ribbon bush. Some of these others are just past their prime. They just need to be tossed. I'll be keeping most of the rice fish in the greenhouse over the winter in 2 different totes, but I think I'll use black totes instead of the clear ones. The clear ones just let in so much light that it can be hard to control the algae, which can actually be helpful for raising fry, but I'm also going to have plants in with the rice fish, and I don't want the plants to get overwhelmed with all the algae. Look at all those bloodworms. Those will make good fish food. Now that I got the table moved out of the way, you can see all of the pothos vines that are growing originally from that stock tank that they've grew over the side, fell on the ground, and then making their way down the side. I totally forgot to get video of us actually moving the greenhouse. My wife and sons were kind enough to help me out. We just each grabbed a corner and picked up and moved it. Easy peasy. That was the easiest part of the whole project. So the stock tank, we just left it in place for now, and I'll have to wait a few days before I get a chance to break it down and move it. I decided to build a frame using 2x6s for the bottom of the new greenhouse. This is going to make it much more secure and weatherproof. It was just way too drafty at the ground level before having the frame. Well, now I'm back after a few days and I've got a plan for moving this tank. First, I need to thin out the plants, like this monster clump of peace lily. Can definitely divide that up into several plants. I got to get these guppies and goldfish out too. So what I'm thinking for the substrate is I'll just dig out all the dirt and sand and only put back a layer of sand, like a 1-inch layer, and use pond baskets to fill up with clay substrate, set them directly below the monstera and philodendron, and eventually their roots will have something to grow into. This will give me a more portable setup. Well, trying to catch the goldfish with these plants still in here is just not going to work. They're just too good at hiding, but the guppies are easy enough. Hey, check out this jumbo female. She's like 3 times the size of the others. When I took the giant clump of monstera, philodendron, and pothos out, I expected it to have roots growing all through the substrate, just like it has in all of the indoor aquariums, but most of the roots were concentrated in or just outside of the planter basket. I managed to catch all the fish, dig out all the substrate, and now I'm trying to wash the dirt out of the sand so I can reuse that sand. But it's taking too long in this mixing tray. So I set the empty tank in its new location inside the greenhouse and try washing the sand out inside the tank because it's got more surface area to stir the sand around and flush the dirt out. But after 20 more minutes of doing this, it's just taking too long and wasting too much water and still nowhere near clean enough, so I'm just abandoning the sand idea. If I really want sand, I can add clean sand at a later time. I've just got too many other things to get done right now, so I'm pressing on. Another good thing about the substrate baskets is they can create a little hiding spot for the fish if they ever get spooked. I'm going to try my best not to hang plants all along the front of the rim of this tank. I really want to keep the front open so that it's easier to see the fish. You know, only keep plants along the back rim, but I admit it's difficult to resist the temptation, and of course nature abhors the vacuum, so who am I really kidding? I make some places for the vines to climb up. I also want to try to keep all of the vines trained upward this time instead of being all along the ground and up in the rafters and just all over the place. It just got a little too crazy in the old spot. Whenever I move a pond, I try to keep about 20% of the old water to put back into the tank after it's moved, because this is the water that the fish are adapted to, and it has beneficial bacteria and tannins and microorganisms, and it prevents fish from being shocked by brand new water, which is really too sterile. The pond is filled back up again, and now all the plants are in place, and I put all the fish back in, guppies and goldfish. Now, shortly after reintroducing the goldfish, they start showing breeding behavior down at the bottom of the tank, and this continues for several hours, though I doubt any offspring will result. They're just feeling frisky in their new home. Now I have all these patio ponds to take down. I'm taking these 3 down, but leaving this other one up over the winter, and this will give me a chance to test out the cold hardiness of certain plants, and of course some of the rice fish are going to stay in there. I went ahead and set up 2 black totes for the rice fish inside the greenhouse, and all the fish from the patio ponds are going to go in there. And I'm keeping the original group that I bought last year separate from all of the offspring. Now, I almost hate taking this little pond down. This is the one that I set up back in the spring and made a video about it, the 4 square foot water garden video. And this was probably one of the funnest videos that I can remember making. It's just a great little project, and you know, it's been fun watching this little pond mature over the season. And this dwarf sage has just completely covered the bottom. Started off with just a few little sprigs back in the springtime. I'm going to pot it all up and move it in with the rice fish. The Java moss worked pretty well at hiding the planters, Moss, of course, always helps everything to look more natural. So all the mixing trays that I set up in the spring have ended up becoming a wild, overgrown jungle with all these different plants growing together and on top of each other. And I would like to sort these out, separate the plants, organize everything. This water wisteria started off as one little cutting that exploded over the summer, and it's got all these other plants mixed in. So I'm going to take all these tropical plants like the water wisteria inside the greenhouse. I'm going to sort them out into their own tray to grow in over the winter inside the greenhouse, and pretty much I'm leaving all the cold hardy plants outside, and they can go into the next section of greenhouse whenever I get that up and going. All the bacopa is coming in, and the alternanthera. This has been one of the coolest plants to grow this year. It just floats along the water surface and grows like crazy. This water sprite is going to be coming in too. And this is a tedious job, but it will surely be worth it in helping to create a more organized setup. So this is really what I've wanted from the beginning of this year, just having plants in their own designated container. And that's what I tried to do outside, but ended up with everything just growing together, and it was just not very organized. So my hope is that the entire new part of the greenhouse, as well as this one, is going to be just like this, just designated containers for each plant species. On this side, it's going to be plants that are growing out, getting ready to sell. So after a few days, the stock tank pond's looking pretty good. All the water wisteria is just multiplying, no problems. The fish are adjusting, goldfish are doing good, and the philodendron back there is finally starting to stand upright. I'm anxious to get it growing up this rope. I think that's going to be nice. So yeah, and I'm already tempted to hang more plants on this front edge. I'm trying very hard to resist that temptation because I do like it open. It's cleaner, you can see into it more, it's more enjoyable, but we'll see how long that lasts. So now I've gotten some of these mini ponds taken down, and I've got plants that were on that chase lounge moved out to containers. So it feels good, starting to get more organized around here. With the mixing tubs down here, I've got bacopa by itself. Now these are having to share a container right now, but yeah, this white star sedge is really looking nice, and I'm anxious to get more of that propagated to sell next year. And it's a native plant too, native to the southeast. All of the spot flower is by itself, and it's even starting to put on some new growth. We've had a lot of warm weather, unseasonably warm during this fall, so now it's bloomed and putting on new growth. All the Acorus, there's still some tubs that are all mixed up, but it's just going to have to be that way until I get the new section of the greenhouse put up. Then I can start going through and reorganizing all these. But I think all of these are going to be able to handle freezing weather. All these are going to be hardy, cold hardy for the winter. And all of this water celery looks so good growing all together, especially with that red salvia blooming, really stands out. And the Bowles golden sedge, this is definitely becoming one of my favorite sedges for a pond. It's cold hardy as well, and just really is so bright, and it can grow in the shade. It doesn't really like full-blown sun anyway. It does like more shade. But the pickerel rush is going dormant, and yeah, I'll have to divide this stuff up in February and get some new plants ready to sell. But the stock tank pond is still growing. Everything's still growing pretty well. I've thinned it out a number of times. Anyway, check out this Japanese pennywort. I'm kind of growing it as a ground cover underneath this Acorus, but And it's looking so nice. It's got some moss mixed in there too. It's even starting to grow over into the next planter next to it. So I'm going to see how cold hardy that Japanese pennywort is. And the water sprite, one of the last big ones left. I had so much of it, I had to toss most of it. But I did get some propagations going in the greenhouse, and I'm going to try to hang on to this one. But yeah, it's definitely not going to make it through the cold weather. But I've got a few house plants I need to move into the greenhouse because we're expecting rain, and also temperatures are going to start dropping. So I need to move them out.